request you to kindly stay back for the next session as well, sir, because our founder, CEO and editor-in-chief, Mr. Anil N.M. Wanvari, is going to chair the next session. So can we have a huge round of applause for him, first of all, and then our next topic is creating a world in 6 to 10 episodes. The panelists will talk about, as the world saw the rise of OTT web series over the COVID-19 pandemic, filmmakers around the world asked the same question. How do we flesh out a world in 6 episodes, just 6 episodes, from dystopian universe of your wildest imaginations to the familiar surroundings of everyday life? OTT directors and writers have succeeded at creating 3-dimensional experiences on a 2-dimensional screen. So for this, we have our esteemed panel of speakers. First of all, I would like to invite on stage Ms. Nimisha Pandey, Chief Content Officer, ZEE5. Please welcome Nimisha. You're looking lovely.
I keep telling her she should be on screen, not behind the scenes.
Yes. Now, I would like to take the honor to invite Ms. Alankrita Shrivastava, film director and screenwriter. Please welcome Ms. Shrivastava. Only I am doing the applause. May I request you all to please put your hands together. Now, I would like to invite on stage Mr. Karan Anshuman, writer, director and producer, Atomic Films. Please welcome Mr. Karan. We have Mr. Sidharth Jain, founder and producer, House of Talkies. I feel immense pleasure inviting you on stage as well, Mr. Sidharth. We have Mr. Kartik Krishnan, head of development, Dice Media, writer, actor and creative director, Pocket Aces. Very warm welcome to Kartik as well. We have Mr. Sandeep Modi, creator and director, night manager and co-creator of Arya Season 1. Can we have a huge round of applause for Mr. Sandeep? So before we start this session, I have something to tell you that we are having a masterclass of City of Dreams web series. You must have seen first season, second season and third season of the political drama. So we are having this star cast and all the team members of City of Dreams after this session. So please be there. Now over to you, sir.
All right. Any questions you would like me to ask them? Please start asking the questions before. Can we have the mic going around? Does anyone want to ask them any questions? Do you have any questions for the panel over here? I have lots of questions. There's a question over here. Rahil again.
Yeah, thanks. I'm always there, Anil. Hi, everybody. We would like to know that when a new scriptwriter or a director comes with a proposal, what is the first thing that you guys look for?
Okay, we'll come to the answer for that later. Okay, how do you decide whether a show deserves... I'm going to ask from your perspectives. Beginning with the platform first, how do you decide that a show needs to have 6 to 8 episodes? What goes behind that decision? Why not 2 or 3?
Okay, we don't decide how many episodes the show should be. It's truly and always the story that dictates how many episodes does it deserve or how many episodes does it need to tell itself. Of course, you have to be honest enough to hear it and not try and force fit any mathematics into it. But really, if you're honest and when you read that story, it is the story that will always tell you what is the pace that it should have.
Alankrita, do you agree with that? That they don't know, the platform doesn't decide?
I think, normally when one has a story and you're thinking of some characters, you're thinking of like a world, a universe, I think you know instinctively whether it's a feature film, whether it's a mini series or it's a series. And I think for me, like a series means it's going to be about 6 to 8 episodes.
Why not 12?
It could be, depends on the story. If I feel like it has that kind of expanse or whatever. But maybe the stories that I've thought of, I haven't felt like they're the kind of stories which should have so many episodes. So I feel instinctively it's one of the 3. And then when you discuss it with the platform, I think mini series is not that popular in India. So I think it kind of does depend on the story, also depends on the length of the episodes, depends on, so I think various factors come into play, but I think as a writer, as a creator, you instinctively know what you're going for, whether it's a film or it's a longer format in terms of a series. And many times when you start working on the Bible, you don't actually know how many episodes it'll be. And once you start developing it, you might have thought it'll be 8 episodes. Then you're like, no, I think 7 should do it. Or sometimes you're like 7, but you need 8. Sometimes it's like 10, but you'll make it 9. So I think those things do happen as the writing also progresses. And normally I think it is a kind of a collaborative decision. Sometimes there are a lot of other factors that do come in practically, in terms of how much time is required. There are budgets, so sometimes you do feel that maybe this story can have like a lesser episode, and the budget will be such that you'll be able to do justice to all the other episodes. And since you're still writing, you can figure out a way of reducing one episode. So I do feel that it's like there are various factors at play, but I don't think it's the most relevant thing. I think what's more important is what is the story that you're telling, how are you building that universe, what do you want to say, what are your characters doing. I think that's the, more important thing.
Karan? Your experience so far, I mean, have you had to...
I don't agree that it's only story that dictates it. Definitely the platform has a lot of say in terms of what they're looking for. 100%. I mean, this genre of storytelling, this OTT kind of thing that had started in 2016 or when it did, it was new, right? Before that, we just had feature films, and then we were aiming for like 500 episodes. So I don't know if it's suddenly just the story that dictates, because we have always grown up looking at the 2-hour format, or if you're in television, then how can we just keep this going forever? And I think to be very specific with the stories that you want to tell right now, in 6 to 8
or 10, whatever.
Or 10 hours is what I was going for, is... I don't know, man. Like, that's why you have seasons, I guess, where you can, if you have the scope to expand, then you would just do another season. But that's not to say why couldn't you do that in 20 episodes to begin with. So I don't know what it is. I often write a lot, and then my producer tells me that this is going to be insanely expensive, and then the platform says, are you crazy, and then this and that, so I have to cut it down. But I always have a lot more to say than what ends up on screen or on paper to even start with.
Okay. Let's move to Kartik, and then to Sandeep, with Night Manager.
I think there is a little bit of truth in what everybody has been saying about this. It depends on what the themes also is, like what is it that you want to kind of try and say in this one particular season. There's a reason why Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul have like 6 or those many plus seasons. Friends has 10 seasons, so many number of episodes.
No, I don't think the Friends producers knew they would have 10 seasons.
When they were creating, definitely they did not.
So
it kind of becomes a part of what the network or the platform say and what the audience also feels. Right. So कितना उसको प्यार मिलता है, उस हिसाब से भी वो लोग उस दिशा में, उस डायरेक्शन में ले जाते हैं. और it depends actually on these factors. लगान 3.5 घंटे की है, किसी को खटकती नहीं है. बहुत सी ऐसी फिल्में हैं जो 2 घंटे के अंडर है, लेकिन लगता है कि यार ये बहुत लंबी है. तो कई दफ़ा ऐसा होता है कि हम लोग स्टोरी ख़त्म हो चुकी है, लेकिन हमें एहसास नहीं होता ऑनेस्टली कि यार हम खींच रहे हैं. तो वो एक चीज़ ऑब्जेक्टिविटी ज़रूरी है, लाइक विच इज़ वाई जावेद अख्तर कहते हैं ना कि लाइक इट्स एन आर्ट ऑफ schizophrenia. 1 minute you're feeling, oh my God, this 10 episodes, 8 episodes, everything is holding. The next day you come and revisit it and you're like, you want to just cut your wrist and, like Coen Brothers say, enter into a bathtub with a slash wrist. So essentially it's trying to have that balance between, am I holding the audience's interest by the 8th or the 9th episode also, or am I better off ending it on the 8th episode and trying to kind of tackle this problem? in the subsequent season. We faced that in Ghar Wapsi. Like the 6th episode, we tried to kind of, after we shot it and all, we were told, like मैं और director बात करते रुचन ने कहा था कि यार हमने पूरे season को, season 2 को हमने final episode में condense करके बनाया है. But हम लोग खींच सकते थे, but लगा कि नहीं, वो शायद honest नहीं होता. अगर खींचते तो पता चल जाता और dishonesty दिख जाती. So it depends on a lot of these sort of these things, and ultimately, as Alankrita and Nimisha said, that it's a lot about honesty also, not just like indulgence and not just like यार इतने number of episodes चाहिए. I don't know if that answers your question.
Kind of. Sandeep, Night Manager is a takeoff from the Night Manager internationally. So the number of episodes, were they chop out exactly like the international one? Were there more episodes in the international one, less episodes in the Indian one, or more episodes in the Indian one? And what went into deciding that it would be so many episodes?
Firstly, very good afternoon to everyone. Thank you for having me here. The show made in 2015 by David Farr and Susanna Breer, it had 6 episodes of an hour long. But the same show was sold in many countries as 8 episodes of 40 minutes. So when the adaptation came to me, it was never a question of the number of episodes. It started with us saying, actually, I'm going to give you some dishonest answers first, because I think we were speaking a lot of honesty on this panel. I think no one's here to hear these honest answers, so I'm going to give you some dishonesty. I think as producers, a lot of us are interested in knowing, is our money locked by the number of episodes we produce, right? ये per episode मिलने वाला है पैसा कि is it going to be overall, this is the
Project
money?
का पैसा है.
Project का पैसा है. So the moment the honesty comes, once you know ये project का पैसा है. अच्छा project का पैसा है, then I'll be true to what the story requires. Sometimes the producer says, not in the case of the Night Manager, but generally in life, the producer will say, I think add 1 more episode. I think the finances will not work out at 6 episodes or 5 episodes. Can you push for 1 more? So somewhere we have to remember as creators, I'm always keen to see the business in a 360 way. While it's very easy to go in a shell and say we are a creator, our job is to only look at the creative. This is the most expensive art form, right? I'll say Elon Musk's art forms are different and he spends a lot more money in his art forms. But for us in what we do, बहुत महंगा, and so many jobs are involved, so many people's livelihoods are involved. You take a creative call and unless you understand how the enablers, how the platform, how the producers are seeing it, you may not be able to take everyone along. It's a collaborative art form. So a lot of times it takes effort to understand why are they saying, isko itne episode rakho. What are the reasons? Sometimes they come back saying, you think this can happen in 6. So a lot of times I ask questions back saying, why that? And sometimes a lot of us creators hate the word data. I love data, because data can be interpreted in so many ways. I say, batao, data batao. You know, as long as you're open to sharing data, we can both discuss it and see whether the data can be beneficial to us or whether it is something which is just messing up our brains right now, right? Because data can mean one thing one day, or 2 दिन के बाद और data आएगा which will change things. So a lot of times these, the answers come from understanding the business, understanding different point of views, Mr. Wanvari. In the case of the Night Manager.
Call me Anil, please. You're a creator, I'm a creator. Call me Anil.
So when it came to the Night Manager, when me and Sridhar went about the adaptation, there was so much story we wanted to pack into it. It felt like it may not hold for the same 6 episodes. And there were some episodes which we felt from the original show, and we discussed with the producers, who were also the producers on this one, that हमें लग रहा है कि थोड़ा हल्का है. Can we add a little more? Can we actually design a dip in the show? Which is actually quite interesting thing, I'll tell you. Normally we always say, भागते रहना चाहिए, show भागते रहना चाहिए. We said, you know, the joy of some episodes will only be, एक होता है ना कि दौड़ेगा जब मजा आएगा जब आपको एक ठहराव मिलेगा. So can we design a ठहराव? So a lot of these things happened once we knew exactly that it doesn't matter whether we do 6 or we do 7 episodes. And once it was told to us, it was a home run after that.
So Sidharth, you have many books and you've been a producer yourself and you've also got books. When you're going about show, let's say a platform approaches you and they say, we like that book. You option it, that the IP, there's no talk about the number of episodes or nothing. There's no discussion with the author. Or is there a discussion at that stage that he'd like to see his story being interpreted in that manner? How deep does it go?
Firstly, I think Sandeep is the perfect producer's director. He said all the things that a producer in a studio wants to hear from a director. So great, Sandeep. We'll work on a show with you soon. Secondly, also, Anil, I think those days are over when a platform calls and says, I want a book. It's gone 2 years ago. You know, platforms want good projects. They want clarity on the vision. So I think it's also not, wise to really think episodes when reading a book. I think, like Alankrita said, can it be a film or a series? I think that's a more important conversation
I
at
get
that point.
But we're talking about sticking to...
Yeah. So I'm just coming to, so, like for example, Trial by Fire was a book. And, when we decided to make it as a mini series, we started with the plan of, maybe you should have 8 episodes. Then we thought, this is a show about loss and grief. Maybe 8 is too long. And we started writing the Bible. And then at some point they said, it's a sad show, make it 6. But I think, so we ultimately had 7 episodes of 40 minutes each. And it was really driven from the fact that as creators, and especially with Prashant and the team, that we need to give the audience what will they expect from a story like this and not cheat them on their expectations. Anyway, somebody's looking for a comedy or entertainment will not watch this show. They'll watch it for a certain reason. And if that needs 7 episodes of 40 minutes, then that's what we should do. And we re-evaluated it at every step, including the edit. And ultimately, we stuck with our gut and the instinct. So I think, this whole, everybody's answered it pretty well. I think the combination, the only thing that I would add is also the release strategy. Sometimes a platform has a slot for release in a certain quarter next year, and they feel this show is good for that time, also due to competitive reasons. So sometimes then we may try and adjust the writing a bit to deliver the 6, 7, 8 episode. So I would really say it's really so many things, but ultimately the story, because you can't bore the audience. So that's something that we cannot do at the cost of anything else. So as long as it sticks and the purpose of the show and the story is delivered sincerely, that is the number.
And how much of this is really being practiced in the world?
My experience, it is. My experience has been amazing so far. I'm working with 2 other international
Have you had the
platforms.
authors happy with the interpretation?
Yeah, absolutely. I think because also when they meet me first, I tell them, you're selling your soul, chaddi, banyan, everything. You will have no say in anything. You want to do this or not? They say yes, and then we move forward. So they're very happy if something just gets made.
Wow. Not like other creators internationally who want to be involved.
No, I think in India, it's still a different craft and there's a long gap. It's so difficult to just make anything.
Sorry?
It's so difficult to just make anything in this country. And
Very deep. It's so difficult to make anything in this country. Very deep.
Can I add something to it?
Please.
Just adding something to it, an anecdote. So John Le Carre, I was lucky that when I started the adaptation, he was still alive, and I said, would he want to be part of the adaptation? His son replied saying, as his track record says, every time he's tried to be part of an adaptation, it has sucked. So he's saying, it's better I leave it to the creators and the makers. So maybe it's one of the other reasons why it's best left to the right people for the job.
You heard that?
His
It's
right
very
job is
difficult
to
to get
coordinate.
anything made in this country. Why? You're the platform. You're the only platform here. Take it up.
No, Sid, tell me why.
sorry, what, why?
Why is it very difficult to make anything in this country?
No, in generally, I feel
No,
it's just difficult because, it's because you're always, budgets are always a problem in terms of the vision of the creators. I think the gap is reducing, but it's always, we want more money. But
Most
the-
expensive
now you got
art
scared.
form.
not
as
enough
Sandeep was saying, it's the
subscribers
most expensive
paying enough
art-
money. People want to watch free content. Kaise chalega?
No, but now you got scared a bit when she said how.
Why? Not at all.
Huh? Not at all?
We are scared of you as a moderator. I don't think we've got other fears on this panel.
We've got other?
We don't have other fears on this panel. Except the North Korean missile.
Kartik.
Just what Sandeep had said initially, that it's the most expensive art form eventually, and you have to kind of, be responsible, be accountable to that, and at the same point of time, make engaging content. Like, so there's a little bit of soul that is there, there's a little bit of craft that is involved, and there's a lot of science, which is, it needs to be that intersection of all the three. Like, like data के बारे में जो बोलते रहते हैं, like if you look at YouTube, if you look at the comments that are there on each episode of, you know, What the Folks, Adulting, any of the shows that we made or other shows that are there, you get to know which actor is working. You get to know what story, which episode is a hit, which one is, you know, is not doing well. They give you instant feedback. So you got to be accountable to all these things. The audience's attention is a gift. So we have to kind of treat it. I mean, ideally, it has to be treated like that. That's the idea.
Okay, I was speaking to a very, I'm not going to name him, he said, creativity be damned. It has to follow formula. There has to be, if you have a Salman, there has to be that hip movements. You have to have him doing certain things. Creativity be damned. Is that true now? Is that becoming something that's popular even in OTT? You have same, almost on every platform. Is that becoming true? And 6 to 8 episodes, everyone is doing it. So even the platforms are doing it because that's the answer. Nobody's willing to take the risk to have mini series. Nobody's taking the risk to have longer series.
No, so we have 5-part series.
Okay.
And we have 10-part series as well. So I don't say it lightly when I say that we truly let the story decide that. However, what happens is that so many times creators have thought of a film story which was perhaps something they were really passionate about and it couldn't turn into a film. And now with the opportunity of the OTT world, if you want to tell the same story as a series, there is a very good chance that it may not work, right? Because then it's a story which was fit for a 2-hour duration. That is how it was conceived, that is how it was written. And now you are forcefully and dishonestly sort of trying to fit it into a 6-part series or a 8-part series. And that's where I feel that, you know, you're being dishonest and hence it's not really going to work. Having said that, about the mini-series part, right? See, we are, like Sid said, like Sandeep spoke, that this is a business, right? There is a huge amount of money that is being invested in every piece of content that we are creating. Now, for the ROI to really make sense, what happens is that it's only when that kind of world gets set in season 1, you have a fan base, you have enough subscribers who have come to watch it. By the season 2, you build on that. And globally, of course, I'm not taking away from the finite series, but the biggest successes globally are the ones that come back with subsequent seasons. So what happens is that, yes, if I will have a choice between greenlighting a mini-series or a show that can possibly have subsequent seasons, all things equal. Will I let go of a great mini-series? That's not what I'm saying. But all things equal, I would pick a show which will have subsequent seasons because it simply makes more business sense to make that content.
So, but because of the ROI part, are most of your writing thinking about not thinking about mini-series writers? Because of the ROI part, that means are we depriving the audiences of another form of entertainment?
I think we're quite...
Be honest, Alankrita.
No, I'm being very honest. First of all, I was very honest. For me, I feel the discussion on number of episodes is like...
Facetious?
No, I just feel like it doesn't... I feel like it's doesn't allow for a deeper discussion on what are the stories that we want to tell, why are certain stories being told, are we really exploring the variety of stories that could come out from a country like India, you know, or is it that we are following certain genres? And I think those, for me, that is a more interesting discussion than just thinking about the number of episodes. I feel like, and one does get conditioned, obviously, when you know that nobody is really greenlighting mini-series, you're not going to think of one and, pitch it because, that's not the...
We're basically trying to push the agenda on different formats coming in. That's where this session was created.
I think the agenda that needs to be pushed is we should have more diversity in our storytelling. How many stories are there which are made by Dalit filmmakers? How many stories are there which are true representatives of the LGBTQIA experience. Do we still have equality in women telling stories? I think that is what needs to be challenged. I feel like whether you're doing an anthology, a short film in an anthology, which is 35 minutes, you're doing a feature film, or you're doing like a series, I think that's secondary. That is the format of storytelling. But to actually push the envelope means, what are we putting out as popular culture for people to see and engage with and feel seen and all of that? I think the format is not so limiting per se. If you get a chance to tell a story in 35 minutes, you can say something very beautifully in those 35 minutes, like Neeraj Ghewan did in Geeli Poochi, brought out something which we rarely talk about. You can do something amazing in 10 episodes, you can do something amazing in a feature film, but to really push the envelope means, let's see who is behind the camera, who's writing the stories, whose stories are being told, and are we still living in a very upper caste, cisgender, male, heterosexual universe of this hero and the whole world revolving around that hero? And how fast is the concept of that hero changing? I think not fast enough. So I think that's what we really need to push and kind of discuss. Whether now you're making 35 minutes or 10 hours, I think the intent of what you want to say, how you want to, I just feel those things, for me, I feel personally as a filmmaker and also someone who's not that tuned into the system and the grid of like what platforms want and all of that, I think for me as an independent filmmaker and a writer, those things are much more relevant. What am I seeing? Whose voices am I seeing? Who's being heard? So I think that's really, really the challenge. If a platform says, listen, I want to give these people a chance. They're very young, they're very new. They might be very underrepresented in the kind of stories they want, but not 8 episodes, do 6 episodes, that's absolutely fine. But who is telling the story and what are the stories being told? I think that's where we need to sort of push.
Yeah, I get that. Karan, are you following that when you're thinking about a new creative project you're writing? Are you thinking about the format that is in place in terms of 8 episodes, especially on the digital series side, or is it because it's been ingrained into us to have 6 to 8 to 10 episodes, not beyond that?
I'm sorry, I don't really follow the question, but
When you're creating something, because it's de rigueur, 6, 8, 10 episodes, you start writing 6 to 8, 10 episodes. Or is it you will not write a mini-series because they all want
No, I mean, on the
larger,
mini-series
larger
front, I'd
running
love to do
series.
mini-series because, then that stress of doing multiple seasons is not there. Yeah. That's not the point, but...
No, I get what Alankrita said, but this session was meant to be around the 6, 8, 10 episodes, so I'm sticking to that, and I'm not going where Alankrita wants me to go. Talking about the story types. I know, we'll get to that in the last, we have 15 minutes, we'll use the last 10 minutes for you all to, voice your angst. Last 10 minutes.
Again, it depends on the story. It depends on the story, as the ladies have. It could be 6 to 8 episodes. But again, I mean, once you start hearing voices from different aspects and, or people who have things to say that we haven't been used to in the mainstream in a big way, it's all about trying to include them in. And I really actively try and work with my writers' rooms that I set up to have these voices, especially when it comes from different regions. And now, I think the lockdown and COVID was a blessing on that aspect, because now I almost do all my writers' rooms on Zoom, and, we have writers from across India wherever they are, I try and find them and just sort of have that voice there to remind us that, we can't be sitting in a bubble over here and just doing what works for the numbers for a platform, and somehow get that in. But again, 6, 8, 10 miniseries.
See, it's hard times, boss. They're not able to make money, the platforms. So might as well go for mini-series. Instead of spending 60 crore on a project or 40 crore on a project, do a mini-series in 8, 10, do many more mini-series. Why stick on to the 6, 8, 10?
Because it's easier to do multiple seasons from a platform perspective, even from a creator perspective, from a business sense of things. Of course, it would be more fun to sit every year and create a new world and then just move on to something else the next time. And that might be more satisfying, but it's very exhausting to constantly do that. It's easier, perhaps, and less, and you can be more focused. You can learn from your data and your mistakes, what can be fine-tuned into making it better going forward. So there, of course, is a business aspect of it, because as...
She said ROI, but internationally, lots of mini-series are being done, and they're doing reasonably
We have
well.
done a lot of mini-series. We do a lot of mini-series, and I'm really angry that I don't get to do them. But for some reason, all the platforms just want, like, ongoing sagas from me, which is just annoying, to be honest. So,
how many mini-series are you having on your platform? 2 episodes, 3 episodes? Max 4?
Let me answer
There's a
this.
difference between a mini series
Yeah.
and a limited series. I
Yeah.
think in that sense. So I don't think it's so much about number of episodes, because we have also done things like have a film and we did that with Tesh and have it in an episodic format. But I think just also going back to
He had angst. He said, I want to do mini-series, but I'm not getting chances to do mini-series. I'm in long-drawn, long-running series.
if I put my foot down, they'll let me do a mini-series.
There you go.
Okay.
There you go. I think, okay, great. Let's get me great mini-series.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay, so get ready.
There are no
Get
books
ready.
for mini-series. But I want to just say one thing, that, it happens that there are a lot of shows that get greenlit and made, which don't do well. They automatically turn into mini-series. Because they'll never have a second season.
Films become mini-series.
No, I'm saying a lot of shows that don't work, they get canned by the platform.
Okay, and then
they become mini-series. So
Okay.
there are enough.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm just going to, how different it is writing a longer running series and a mini-series. How different is it for you? With the plot points, the cliffhangers, all of that. How different is it when you're writing?
It's the same for the first season. The second season is I think there's more scope in the second season of an ongoing show, because you already have your characters and you have the same amount of time to now, you're done with the setup, you know what the dynamics are, and to hit the ground running much earlier. So that for me, like, second seasons are very
The
fun.
first season. First season
First
itself.
season's
If
the
you're doing
same
a
amount of
mini-series,
effort. Then it's just a length thing, right?
No, like you would have a cliffhanger in the, let's say, 45-minute, you'll have a cliffhanger at the 43rd minute, which then
But
keeps
even in a
being...
mini-series, you'll need a cliffhanger.
Is it the same or is there any difference?
I think it's the exact same thing. It's just that the last episode you have a final end and a conclusive way, which is the old school way of doing things with film, right? Like, you have a graph and the hero's arc that goes through and you know where it's kind of headed. That's where the longer series that is not limited, rather, a not limited series, is scores, because you can really wreak havoc with the characters' graphs and where you want to take them. You want to be them a hero in the first season, and you want to be, completely villainous in the second. There's lots of redemption arcs that you can play with. So that is fun for me, personally.
Alankrita?
Well, I've never written an intended mini-series ever, but I do feel like, I think a mini-series would be closer to a film, except that you could probably break it up into, say, 3 parts. So I would look at a mini-series as something that would be, say, just 3 parts or 4 parts, and maybe just like a longer version of a film, which is kind of complete in itself. And I think in a longer, in a series which has many seasons and has more number of episodes, I guess you can just change things a lot in the next season. Here, like Karan was saying, you kind of close the story, and there are some stories which I think get concluded in one season as well, and those are then limited series. But I wouldn't know, to be very honest, I've never written a mini-series. I only know the difference between a short film, a feature, and a series.
Any of y'all know the difference in writing?
I think The White Lotus is a great example of a intended mini-series which has now become
Sorry,
a franchise.
I can't hear you clearly.
The White Lotus
Okay,
is
The
a
White
great
Lotus.
example of a limited series, but now it's become a franchise of multiple series. So I think platforms and creators are smart, that if the audiences like something, we'll find a way to take it forward. If not, we'll just create something else. But I think the technique is really the same, right? To find an organic way.
We've created some mini series for our YouTube channel, which is like 3 to 4 episodes, less than like 15, 20 minutes and all that sort of thing. It's just that the story ends at the end of the 4th, 5th episode. And that is what it is. Like, agar aap isse better as the return of investment point of view, from a creative and from the business point of view, it makes more sense to kind of, look for characters or stories which have subsequent seasons and they don't just end at the end of the 4th episode or the 3rd episode. So otherwise, in terms of the effort, in terms of the rules of screenwriting and all those things, they are pretty much the same.
Just adding to it, I think as a country and as filmmakers who are adapting to OTT, I don't think we are making shows yet. I think we're all making miniseries. Karan, Lanky, me, all of us are filmmakers turning to OTT. So there is a certain, and we've grown up to cinema, right? And OTT is, if I can call it, a love child between television and cinema in a certain way. And somewhere we always believed a film has to end. So for us, it's ingrained so deep that it takes a little while for us to say, keep it going, keep it going. Like television has that idea, as Karan was mentioning, till 2015, we used to have 500 episode thingies, we just keep going on.
You have Virishta, which is crossing now, I think, 3,000 plus.
Excellent. You have the records. So I think somewhere a lot of us write, in a way, a finite end in our minds. It's somewhere, it's only when, we get an opportunity to be asked to say, can you continue this further, is when we go beyond. But whether it's 1 season or 2, there is a finite end somewhere a filmmaker thinks of when he thinks of an idea, and somewhere it takes a different way of thinking to expand it.
Sure. I've got Alankrita insisting she'd send me messages. We have to discuss world building.
No, please don't say I insisted. You all created a WhatsApp group saying what would you like to discuss.
Let's go to that because I think we've run the course on the limited and.
So let's be very clear. It was not me insisting. It was when I was asked for suggestions.
No, you have to insist as a writer, like she said.
But
like
I
she
have
said,
to say
you have to insist.
Even the whole diversity point that you were talking about, it's also not just because it is the right thing to do, but also that is the only way the newer worlds would also come into being, right? And as a platform, and somebody asked what are the things that you look for, I just want to start with saying, and Alankrita, you can just talk more about it, is that more and more there's more of the same, right? So how do we really make sure that there are newer worlds that as creators, as platforms, we are able to offer to the audience? Obviously, newer voice is a big part of it, but also from the craft point of view, what more can we possibly do so that when we are taking the audience in the new world, which is 8 to 10, 6 part, the audience is investing in a new world. How does it become immersive? How does it become a place that how many times we watch a show and after the show is over, in your head, you're still living in that world. So how does that magic really happen?
I guess that's what we were talking about earlier also, that I think to create a world is the most exciting thing, I think, for a series, and that's what I feel makes it different from film, because there's like a longer time that you can you can live in that universe, you can have characters running for a much longer time in a world, and that world is kind of created by us, and I think all the elements kind of come together to make that world happen, right from the writing stage, to the production design, costume, obviously how you're directing it, and right to the end in terms of choice of music and even the grading and everything. So I just feel that for me, what is most exciting about the series world is the fact that you get to create a universe, and and you can just keep extending that universe, and you have those characters, they're sort of living in that universe. So I think, for me, that's the most interesting sort of aspect about a longer format.
While you're talking about, the different types of stories which have not been commissioned, the entire OTT sector is very afraid to experiment even with comedy. Am I right on that front? Comedy is something which kind of gets you all shaking.
Yeah, you're right, because comedy is tough to crack. And I think irrespective of the format, comedy is tough to crack. We have tried doing a couple of them. Some of them have worked, some of them haven't. But I think the whole pressure of the driving the subscription currently, what the entire ecosystem is sort of going through, it doesn't really help the case, because comedy, as we have seen, and I'm happy to be wrong, I truly hope that it's just a matter of that one show coming which will change it. But it hasn't really turned out to be the most acquisitive genre per se. I mean, people love to watch it, but how many people here would see a comedy trailer and would actually go and buy a subscription of a platform? And
Let's have a show of hands. How many of you would buy? That's about, what, 5% of the audience. So you'll agree with her that, you have two hands coming up over there.
Buy twice.
You'd pay for 2 subscriptions.
You know, but you have a show like Fleabag, and that's...
yeah, but look at that writing. So I think it's
So it's
on
on-
us
yeah, it's
together,
on us to
right?
actually find that dark
Absolutely,
comedy.
Absolutely.
Go ahead, Karan. Add to the conversation.
Actually, I have a question for Nimisha, actually. Sorry, you are the only one from the platform side on this panel,
I
so all of us
often
have...
lead my get into these situations, but it's
No, but that's what makes you a brave young woman.
The question actually is, what Alankrita spoke about earlier, the idea that how do we find newer voices? And is there a conscious effort to find people who may have little experience to tell these stories, but have great stories, who may have lesser resources to tell these stories, may not have great producers backing them? As a platform, is there a conscious effort put towards it, or that is something the ecosystem has to come from outside, which is not part of the platform?
They are risk averse to a large extent. Though she'll say we are taking a lot of risks.
No, so I can also say, something that, and again, to keep it honest, I will say it first person, and I'm not saying it on behalf of many people or many platforms. And I will also say it honestly that when I started my journey with Z5 2.5 years back, we did not have the big budgets to cast the biggest stars, to afford the biggest creators. So it started with actually the need, because there weren't many resources. It only got me beautifully to the end of that journey, in that sense, to realize that you didn't quite need them at the first place. So there are, whether it was Amrita Subhash headlining Saas Bahu Achar, whether it was Vineet Singh headlining Rangbaz, whether it was Zain doing Mukhbir. I mean, you have not heard of these. I mean, you've heard of these actors, but they aren't really stars. So we did that, and honestly, once the piece of content is there for the audience to see, I don't think the audience cares. It is the scary part and also the comforting part.
This is on-screen talent. What about behind-the-scenes talent?
Behind the screen talent, though, honestly, it's not really for the audience. And for that, I truly believe that for me, it is always about what is on the paper. There are times that, I'm not sure who is really the writer, because I have gotten the script and, it doesn't have the name. And if the script works, the script works.
Like, would you have a blind mail coming in, or somebody wanting to submit a story to you? Say, I'm sure everyone in the audiences has a story which they feel will be a great comedy or a great show. Is there a way, is there a glass wall, if I can call it, which doesn't allow a new voice to come in and reach you?
So we get cold pitches all the time. They, of course, go through a legal system, whether they are registered, this and that. And for example, there is this brilliant script that has come from 2 fresh people who have done nothing. What I would do is, I would make that show, but I would set them up with, say, a producer who has had the experience of doing long form. Because let's not forget, it also is a lot of craft and a lot of experience involved in doing that, right? I've had experiences where I trusted first-time producers and it didn't go too well. So again, it's a lot of responsibilities. So just to answer that question, yes, fresh voices can. But now when the fresh voices would come and say, for my first show, I want to be the showrunner, I want to be the director, I want to be the producer, that's not going to work.
I think Kartik wants to add.
Yeah, I think this is something. अंधेरी में हर किसी के पास स्टोरी आइडिया है, ऑटो वाले के पास भी है, but the discipline of writing that into those number of pages of 120 pages in cases of film or the Bible and the pilot episode, that is what kind of breaks the wall, what you were talking about. And yeah, I mean, we've also had instances where first time creators have like asked for the moon, and then we've had to kind of, try and work with them and try and make them understand the realities of it. And how the rules can't be necessarily the same for someone who's done like repeated success or repeated successful shows or pieces of content versus someone who's starting out. Of course, starting out में थोड़ा दिक्कत होता ही है. But at the end of the day, and that's how we should get more voices, more creators in our rooms, more actors from different diverse backgrounds, not necessarily the star kids, not necessarily the most prettiest of all the sort of faces, as long as they do the job well. We are here to serve the audience. As long as the story, it does, touches the audience's hearts, I think baki sab ho sakta hai.
I just feel that it can't be left to chance, that somehow, so I feel that there has to be, I think what Karan was saying was really lovely, that, who we hire, what is the composition of a writer's room? Are we really looking at taking on people, making sure that people have the work experience, because it's normally, obviously, they don't get a chance only. So many people who may not come from the heart of the system, and they actually don't get a chance. So can we make sure that we include them in our crews? I think that's one
100%,
of the best ways. And also I feel a lot of other systematic things help a lot. I think labs. So there are labs, like screenwriting labs.
Yeah, of course.
So there are a lot of labs which, there are few labs which are sort of run, which do try to encourage new voices. But I do think that all of us as creators, including, and then also as platforms, to make more systematic efforts, because, things don't change by chance. Things change when people have that intent that let's definitely work towards having a more diverse a range of people who are able to bring their stories to the fore. So I do feel that it's also not just about which kid managed to somehow get that one thing across, but how many new people from other backgrounds are we willing to systematically encourage, which is, how many labs, I can only just think of labs, but basically mentorships and things like that. I feel all of that kind of adds up.
No, 100%. You have to kind of have more inclusive, and this is an effort that consciously everyone has to take, whether it is systematic or even in whatever capacity and position that we are all in, to try and make sure that we get more voices. A Sarah doing well would eventually lead on to more and more creators from that particular community to come and create.
The sad part is if a Sarah does well, you'll have many other Sarah-like products coming out.
That is true for all. That is true for all things, right?
It's a lemming-like rush.
No, that is true for anything that is successful, right? But that's not what we are talking about. जब भी कोई hit film होती है, romantic comedy बनती है, everybody starts making romantic comedy. There used to be back a couple of decades ago, there used to be a bunch of sleaze films only because one murder did really well. Sorry.
Okay.
But you get what I'm saying. But that should not be restrictive of the fact that more and diverse voices should definitely come out, and we have to kind of consciously do that.
Sure.
At the same point of time, we have to focus on audience retention and storytelling.
Focus on business also, so that she can get paid a salary every month. And so also
Not
the rest
just
of the executives,
so that,
the rest of the teams.
No, it's not just the executive salary. So that this whole medium that we are celebrating, the OTT medium that we are all celebrating, it can thrive and it can survive. And
Wow,
it's
well said.
extremely important.
No, but I'm sure these were the thoughts of many people, so that she can get a salary.
No, but you guys are just seeming to assume that diverse voices won't be as powerful as ours that we have right now on the table. That's ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous, guys.
No, I'm not assuming that.
Not you in particular, but why are we being apologetic about bringing diverse voices in and giving a platform for them to express themselves? Because I really feel some of those stories would be better than any of the things that we have
Star
to say.
tried that with David for a while. They had a lab where they used to actually train people within, but that's for television.
Yes, exactly. And now with this, with the sort of new opportunities that are there with the tech that we have now, it's a totally different
No,
ballgame.
but you're also going to have ChatGPT giving you, churning out stories.
Right, we're competing with all of that.
Yeah. So we used to run Kalam, a screenwriters workshop, way back in 2002, 3, where we had Lake Tandon, Vinod, Ranganathan. He used to train, we trained 10 scriptwriters who went on to make films, but the industry wasn't interested. Nobody was interested. I just paid them money to come and get trained. The writers, and some of them went on to make films, but the industry did not pay heed at all because they are so secure. They want to be secure in their jobs, most of them. They don't want to take the risk. Honestly telling you, Nimisha, I'm sorry. But
Anil,
risk,
can I
they're
add
very
something?
risk averse.
I'd like to add something just on the writing bit. We did an experiment about 18 months ago, and it started because in Trial by Fire, the co-writer of screenplays was an American called Kevin, and this was his first credited project. And we hired about 10 to 12 writers, fresh out of writing school, film school. Half of them film school, half of them without film school. Age between 20 and 26. Now they're 26. We mentored them for 6 months, paid them like enough salaries to be independently living in the city, paying all their expenses. It's been 18 months, and this year, that entire team is writing 3 series, green-led by 2 global platforms. They're in the writing room. And just to add to Nimisha's thing, that the platform does not care about who's the person behind if they see good material. We went with the right material without saying who's written it. They heard it, they read it, they loved it, and now they're all writing it. So I think the industry is actually very open. I think it's a misconception that you need to be a big name to get your foot into the door. I mean, that always helps, but I think it's pretty democratic. And I would also add that this is the best decade ahead of us. And there's the best opportunities right now for all of us to tell as many stories, and we all have multiple projects, in the pipeline. And that's because the platforms are really supportive, and they're very open to seeing good material. But good material has to be
It
good.
also has to fit within the framework
But
they
why
have
not?
for that year.
But why
Within
not?
the framework of the year.
It's a business,
They
man.
want a thriller, they want a...
No, but it's not really like that. I think it's an outside view. I don't think, like, we are doing a comedy drama for a big platform, and it's,
You've got greenlit with the comedy
yeah,
drama.
exactly.
Wow.
That's what I'm saying. So, I'm saying it's not, and first-time
No,
writers in the writing room, 4 writers are brand new first-time writers. So, it's really in the material, and I think
So you're saying we need to go back to our own script and look at it whether it's working or
go
not?
back to our own roots and see what you are really good at. If you are amazing at murders, or if you are amazing at true crime, then that's what you should do. I mean, right.
So team, are you in the audience? You've got to go back and re-examine our script. That's what they're saying.
No, don't be like anybody else. Be yours. See what you can do best. And I think the genre doesn't matter.
No, I'm telling my team because we've got a lovely comedy.
You're talking
Which,
to your team from here.
yeah, from here. I'm talking about my team, my writing team. So we've got to revisit. Yeah, any question from the audience? Yeah. Mike, please, for Gayatri.
I think we got digressed at a certain point because I liked what Alankrita had brought up regarding the world and the world building. And I don't know about the audience, but I would like to hear a little more from all of you from, what attracts you as a writer and creator to a certain world. First of all, you having made something on cricket, and then you on the women of Bombay, and then Nimisha, what, as an OTT person, what draws you into giving that creator the opportunity to create that world also, and what makes you understand that the audience also wants to be part of that world? So if you guys can also talk about, Sidharth, your world was very different because it was a very, something that had been known by people already. It's true to life, right? And, but people can relate to it because it can happen to anybody. So that's only about talking about human emotion, but we can't really talk about the world as such. So what is it,
So
how
guys,
does that...
elaborate on that. Please, both. Yeah.
Okay, this should have been the topic because this is a long discussion, but let me try and encapsulate what I can really quick. See, creating a universe, of course, means different things to different people, but for me, when I hear that word and I get really pumped up about creating a new universe around the story that I want to tell, it's for me it's very visual, and it's also a lot to do with the sound of it. Now, visual makes it's the setting, it's where it is set up, it's how the characters look, the casting of it, like everything, the costume and just the look of it is very integral to the the visual of it. Like for example, like if it was Inside Edge and cricket and the rarefied air of the rich and famous, you don't want to suddenly go into spaces that are going to break that rhythm, unless it is for a very good reason that you're doing that, like which is insistent on the story. You don't want to go either out of the cricket stadium or some cricket related practice session or this or that, or like 5 stars. You stick with that. And for something like Mirzapur also, like we just made sure that we were always, it had a certain look, which is much easier to do because Inside Edge was on a really tight budget at the right in the beginning of the first season, and to create an opulent look for that, it became a bit of a challenge, but it had to be stuck with for the universe you're creating. And the other aspect of creating a universe, just in terms of tangible things, is I guess the sound of it, like the characters. That is to do with dialogue and how the characters sort of the dialect and where they're coming from. A lot of attention should be paid to that. That really helps in creating and building the universe accurately. The sound does not include music. I feel like music is something that is much more universal. Like again, for Mirzapur, I think one of the early conversations with my music director, John Stewart, was how can we really subvert the expectations from a soundscape of this world, which is so, hinterland India, with music that is very current, very fresh, very, perhaps, I don't know, let's just start with very techno sort of feel, and of course then didn't work out because it didn't look good, but that doesn't really count. So in terms of visuals and audio-visual components of creating a universe, this is just a brief overview of what would sort of go into it, and how it's important to stay consistent to the rules. That's another big aspect of it. So I'm just going to take another 30 seconds and tell you what that might be. Like for example, again in Mirzapur, it's about violence is very common. It's okay, and you don't have to face great legal repercussions. That's a very basic rule that we had, for example, in that series. And that leads to the power dynamics between, and how the quest for power is all that matters. Now that has sort of become a thematic thing with me in all my work, but like even in Inside Edge, that is what we are going at, about having ultimate power. It's not about having money, it's not about, so that theme, I guess, could be quite universal, but the rules that you have to set up for that world have to be consistent and followed through. There's a horror series I'm working on, and it was very tempting to break rules just for, certain jump scares and this and that. But, because we had set up elaborate rules, and however tempting it was, you couldn't really break them. And you just have to stay consistent with that so that your world.
So what you're saying is that you've got to set rules in place when you're writing.
Yeah, the rules of the universe.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
That has to be very clear right up front, like, your characters cannot do this, or these are the reasons why a certain, like in a horror, like, if someone's going to turn into a zombie, then what are the rules that are going to create the zombie has to be very clear,
okay.
For example.
Alankrita, quickly, I know Nimisha,
Namita.
Stage. Okay.
I think everything that Karan has said, I would just also want to just add to the last point, because I think there's also sort of like a moral universe, like a thematic universe, which is like those particular characters will make certain choices because of the world they inhabit. And in that world, this is what is going to happen. I think that becomes very interesting, because a similar character with different circumstances occupying a different sphere in the universe will not make those same choices. So I think that for me follows whether it's a film or a show, that the choices that character makes are determined by the world that character is inhabiting. So it's not a very simple yes or no as to what the character will do. So yeah, just adding on to Karan, that's all.
Yeah. Sidharth? She talked to you about it. Was something which is common as garden, but yet we could relate to
So I
it.
think in very short, what we focus on was the insights you're bringing to each scene or character which the audience can relate to, and then just focus on that to suck the audience into the world, because it was a little period, but grief, loss, but the personal insights for each character. We really focus on that through the process.
Okay, so it boils down to character. But Nimisha, I would really like to know from you also.
No, but you can speak for a minute.
What draws you, I mean, within the worlds that come to you in the subjects? So whether it's how specific, how unusual a world, or even if it is an unusual world, whether it's relatable, what is it that, as a content selector, that you also look at?
So definitely how fresh is the world, like I was speaking about earlier, not more of the same. So how fresh is the world? How rich is the world? Like Karan just spoke about all those details, right? So it is for a platform to be able to see that vision is extremely important, because I'm all for backing that vision, but show me the vision, right? And then also, at what cost that world is going to come, that's extremely important. Sometimes if we feel that, and it's not just about, negotiating a budget, but there are times that, there is a world that has come and we know that the number that it deserves, we perhaps will not be able to do it. So I would rather not do that than to do like a bad job of it. Characters play an extremely, extremely important part, of course. And yeah, and I think that's pretty much it.
So anyway, thank you for being on this panel. We've agreed on some things. We need new voices, hopefully by this time next year. And we need old voices also, with deference to Karan. And within the next year or 2 years, we'll see many more mini-series coming up, rather than just long-running series. And it's all about the story, it's all about the characters. So a big round of applause to you guys and the universe that they built. Thanks. I hope it was useful for you guys in the audience. Thanks.
Definitely, it was useful for all of us, and such an intriguing and lovely session it was, sir. Thank you so much, all of you, for talking on such valid points and bringing your expertise into action. So can I please request you all to please come forward for the photo op first, and then our felicitation process begins. May I please request all of you to give them a huge round of applause for the wonderful session that we just saw. With all the energies intact, we would love to hear the applause in a louder way.